I need to read the skills file and check the used names list before writing. The names to avoid are already in context. Let me write the story now. The voicemail came in at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning. I was already in my car, coffee going cold in the cup holder, when my phone lit up with my dad's number. I didn't answer. I knew what it was going to be. I'd known for 3 months. I sat in the parking lot of my office building and listened to it anyway. "Sweetheart, we really need to talk. Your brother's situation is getting complicated, and we thought maybe you could help us figure something out. Call us back when you get a chance. We love you." "We love you?" I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that means something is funny. I put my phone face down on the passenger seat and walked into work. My brother's name is Cole. He's 29, 2 years younger than me, and for as long as I can remember, he has been the sun that my parents orbit. I say that not to be cruel. I say it because it's the most accurate description I have. Everything in our house. The money, the attention, the conversation at the dinner table. It all bent toward him. Naturally. Like it couldn't help itself. I was the planet nobody was looking at. Growing up, I told myself it was because Cole was harder to raise. He struggled in school. He got into trouble sometimes. He needed more from them, and I was the easy one, so they gave him more. That explanation worked for a long time. It's a very convenient story when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, and you want to believe your parents are fundamentally good people who just have a lot on their plate. By the time I was 17, I'd stopped believing it. There was a moment, and I remember it with the kind of clarity that only humiliation can produce, when I got into the honors program at my high school. It was competitive. I'd worked for it. I came home and told my parents at dinner, and my dad nodded and said, "That's great, hon," and then asked Cole how practice had gone. Cole had joined the rec league basketball team that fall. That was the whole conversation. My thing took maybe 4 seconds. I went upstairs and sat on my bed for a long time. That was the moment I understood that nothing I did was ever going to land the same way. I still tried, though. That's the part I'm most embarrassed about now. Not that they treated me that way, but that I kept trying to change it. I went to college on a partial scholarship, took out loans for the rest, worked 20 hours a week at a campus coffee shop to cover what the loans didn't. I called home every Sunday. I sent my parents photos of my grades, my projects, my internship offers. I wanted them to see me. I thought if I could just do enough, be impressive enough, eventually they would look up. Cole, meanwhile, dropped out of community college after 1 semester, moved back home, and started what my dad described as exploring his options. My parents paid his car insurance. They paid his phone bill. They let him live rent-free for 2 years while I was eating instant noodles in a 1-bedroom apartment split with 3 other people. I never said anything. I told myself it wasn't about the money. I don't know if that was ever fully true. The birthday party was my dad's 60th. My mom had been planning it for months. A private room at this Italian place in town, the kind of restaurant where the pasta is made fresh and the bill for 20 people comes out to something that makes your eyes water. She'd ordered a custom cake, hired someone to do little photo boards with pictures from my dad's whole life. It was a big deal. She wanted it to be perfect. I drove 4 hours to be there. I took 2 days off work. I bought my dad a watch I'd spent 3 weeks researching. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtful. A slim dress watch that matched something he'd pointed at in a magazine once, years ago, and said he liked. I'd remembered that. I'd kept that in my mind for years, waiting for the right occasion. I got to the restaurant and the room was already full. My aunts, my uncles, cousins, family friends. My parents at the head of the long table. Cole next to them, laughing loudly at something, his girlfriend on his arm. The dinner was nice. The food was good. I sat near the middle of the table and talked to my aunt and caught up with a couple of cousins I hadn't seen in years. My dad made a toast. My mom cried a little. Normal family stuff, and I let myself relax into it, let myself think, maybe this is just a nice night. Then came the gifts. My mom stood up and said she wanted to do something special since 60 was a milestone. She started with the cousins, the aunts and uncles, working her way around the table. Everyone had a little something, a bottle of whiskey, a book, a funny card, normal. Then she got to Cole. Cole reached into a bag and pulled out an envelope. My dad opened it. His face went slack for a second, then broke into this enormous smile. The kind I hadn't seen him direct at anything in years. He stood up and hugged Cole. My mom was already crying again. Later I found out the envelope contained the deed to a piece of land my grandfather had owned. My parents had been holding it. They gave it to Cole that night, transferred it to him as a gift. It was worth somewhere between $180,000 and $220,000, depending on who you asked. It was his. Outright. "Happy birthday, Dad. Here's something to give your son." Then my mom turned to me. She handed me a small wrapped box with a bow on top. I unwrapped it at the table with everyone half watching. Inside was a bracelet. One of those thin silver ones you can get at a department store for maybe $30. There was a folded card tucked underneath it that said, "For our daughter, who has always been independent." Independent. I read that word 3 times. I kept my face very still. I had gotten good at that over the years, keeping my face still when something inside me was coming apart. I said, "Thank you, this is pretty." And I set it down next to my plate, and I picked up my fork, and I took a bite of something, and I don't remember what it tasted like. After dinner in the parking lot, my uncle, my dad's older brother, found me leaning against my car. He's a quiet man, not someone who inserts himself into things. He looked at me for a moment and then said quietly, "I saw that in there. I'm sorry." And then he walked to his own car. That was the only acknowledgement I got from anyone. I drove home in the dark, 4 hours, mostly alone with the radio. Here is what I did not do. I did not call my parents that night and tell them how I felt. I did not send an email. I did not wait for an apology that was never coming. I had done all of those things before, in smaller ways with smaller incidents, and I knew exactly how they went. My mom would cry and say I was being sensitive. My dad would go quiet and then 3 days later, act like nothing had happened. Cole would never come up. Nothing would change. So I did something different. I got home, I made tea. I sat at my kitchen table, and I made a list of every financial and logistical way I was still connected to my family. It was shorter than I expected, but it wasn't nothing. I had agreed to be the emergency contact on some of their insurance documents. I had my dad's accountant doing my taxes because it was cheaper when we filed through the same office. Small threads. I spent the next several weeks quietly untangling all of them. I didn't denounce any of it. I didn't explain. I simply stopped being available in the ways I had previously been available. I stopped calling on Sundays. When my mom texted, I responded briefly and didn't ask follow-up questions. When my dad called, I let it go to voicemail more often than not, and when I called back, I kept it to 10 minutes. I wasn't rude. I wasn't cold in any way that they could point to specifically. I just contracted. Pulled back to the smallest version of myself in their lives. It took them 4 months to notice. My uncle noticed sooner. He texted me sometime in January, about 6 weeks after the party. "Just thinking about you. Hope work is going well." I wrote back a real answer. We ended up talking on the phone for an hour. The first real conversation I'd had with anyone from that family in months. He didn't bring up the party directly, but at one point he said, "Your dad loves you. He's just always been better at showing it to the ones who need more fixing." And I said, "I know. I just think I'm done waiting for that to change." He was quiet for a moment and then said, "I think that's fair." That was the conversation that made me cry. Not the party itself. That conversation. I have stayed in touch with my uncle. He is one of the few people from my childhood I trust to see me clearly. Cole's situation, as my dad had called it on the voicemail, was this. Cole had taken the land, borrowed against it almost immediately, and put the money into a business venture with a friend of his, some kind of sports bar and entertainment complex they were going to open together. By month 7, the partnership had dissolved badly, there were contract disputes, and the whole thing had collapsed. Cole had lost most of the borrowed money, The land was now collateral in a legal mess, and he was back living with my parents. My parents had also, at some point in the previous year, co-signed on a loan for Cole's portion of the build-out. I didn't know that until later. I found out the details not from them, but from my cousin, who texted me in March to give me a heads up before I heard it through the family grapevine in some worse way. She's always been thoughtful like that. She said, "I don't know what they expect you to do, but I think they're going to ask you for something. Just so you know." I thanked her and went back to my day. The ask came 6 weeks later. That voicemail. Then a text from my mom saying they wanted to talk when I had time. Then a call from my dad that I answered, finally, on a Saturday morning. He started with small talk. How was work? Had I been busy? Then he said, "We're in a tough spot right now, with Cole's thing falling through, and we've had to absorb some of the financial hit from that. We were wondering if you might be in a position to help out a little, even just a loan." I let the silence sit for a few seconds. "What would you need?" I asked. Not because I was considering it, because I wanted to hear the number out loud. He said they were about $40,000 short on covering what they'd co-signed. $40,000. I thought about the bracelet. I thought about the word independent, written in my mother's handwriting. I thought about all the Sunday phone calls I'd made from a break room with a half-eaten sandwich in my hand, trying to be present for people who were never fully present for me. "Dad," I said, "I don't have that kind of money available." That was true technically. I had savings, but not anything I was willing to pull apart for this. He sighed. He said he understood. He said they were going to figure something out. I said I hope so, I really do. And that was mostly the end of that call. Cordial. No raised voices, no revelations. I hung up and sat with the strange flat feeling that follows the moment you realize you have nothing left to prove. A few weeks later, I went through a drawer in my childhood bedroom. I had gone back once to pick up some things I'd left there years ago. And I found the bracelet still in its little box. I'd left it there the night of the party because I hadn't been able to make myself wear it home. I took it out of the box, held it for a moment. Then I put it in a small padded envelope, wrote my parents' address on it, and sealed it. I put a single index card inside, and on it I had written, "You were right. I've always been independent. I've got it from here." I mailed it on a Tuesday. Priority mail, so I knew it arrived. My mom texted 2 days later. "I don't understand, I didn't respond to that one." What I want to say about my uncle, because I think it matters. He came to my city last fall for a conference and we had dinner together. It was the first time we'd seen each other in person since the party. Somewhere in the second hour, after we'd covered work and life and his grandkids, he said, "You know they're not going to change." "I know," I said. "And you're okay with that?" I thought about it for a real moment. Not a polite moment. "I think I stopped meeting them too," I said. "That's different from okay. But it's enough." He nodded. He understood that distinction, I think. He's known my dad a long time. We split the check. He hugged me in the parking lot and told me to come visit sometime. I said I would try. I meant it. That was 8 months ago. My life since then has been, honestly, quieter than I expected. I thought the distance would be louder, more drama, more attempts to pull me back in, more conflict. There was some. My mom called several times in the first few months, frustrated, then sad, then something that sounded like resigned. My dad sent one long email that I read carefully and did not answer immediately. Cole texted me once to say he didn't know what happened between me and our parents, but he hoped I was okay. I thought about that text for a few days. I still don't know what to make of it. I have not lent anyone money. I have not attended any family events. I have filed my own taxes and updated my emergency contacts and moved my accounts to a local credit union. I have none of their loans in my name and no financial tether anywhere that I can identify. I went to therapy finally, which I should have done years ago. My therapist is a no-nonsense woman who once told me, very calmly, "You were never the easy one. You were the one they didn't have to fight for, and they took advantage of that." She said it so matter-of-factly, Like it was obvious, like of course that's what happened. I went home and sat with that sentence for about 3 days. There are things I miss. I want to be honest about that. I miss what I thought my family was, or could be, or what I needed it to be, when I was small enough to still need it. I miss holidays that felt like home. I miss having a sister. I have thought sometimes that if I'd had a sister, someone else in that house who was also being quietly looked past, things might have been different. Someone to confirm you're not imagining it. I don't miss being handed a $30 bracelet while the table watched my brother receive land worth $250,000. I don't miss keeping my face still. I don't miss the Sunday calls where I'd performed okayness for an audience of people who found me slightly less interesting than a basketball league update. I am 31 years old. I share an apartment with my best friend from college, a woman I have known for 9 years and who has seen me at my worst and loved me through it anyway. I have a job I'm proud of and a savings account that finally doesn't make me anxious when I look at it. And a plant collection that has gotten, my best friend says, genuinely out of control. Last week I called my uncle just to say hi. We talked for 40 minutes about nothing in particular. At the end he said, "You sound good." "I am," I said. And when I hung up, I noticed that it was true. The bracelet arrived back on my doorstep 2 weeks after I mailed it. They had shipped it back. No note, just the original small box in a new padded envelope. I held it for a minute, then I dropped it in the donation box outside the thrift store on my block. Someone will find it there and love it for what it is. That's more than it ever had a chance to be in my hands. I walked home in the October air and made coffee and opened my laptop and started working on something I'd been putting off. And outside the window the leaves were turning. And I felt not happy exactly. Not yet all the way there, but pointed in the right direction. That was enough. I've thought a lot about what actually happened in that restaurant, not the moment itself, but the long chain of choices that led to it. My parents didn't wake up one morning and decide to love Cole more. It built slowly, quietly, decision by decision over decades. They gave him more because he seemed to need more, and I made it easy for them to give me less because I never fell apart the way he did. That's not an excuse for them. But it's the honest shape of how it happened. And here's the part I had to sit with for a long time. I participated in it. Every Sunday call I made from that break room. Every report card photo I texted. Every time I swallowed something unfair and told myself I was being mature. I was teaching them that I didn't require anything. I was so determined to be good. To be low maintenance. To be the one they didn't have to worry about. That I accidentally convinced them I didn't need anything at all. The bracelet and that word, independent, wasn't just thoughtless. It was the natural conclusion of a story I had helped write. That's not self-blame. That's just the truth. And the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is the only thing that actually helps you move forward. What I understand now is that integrity isn't something other people give you credit for. It's something you build in private, through the decisions you make when no one is watching and when nothing is being handed to you. I paid my own way through college. I built my savings dollar by dollar. I showed up on time, kept my word, did the work. Nobody threw me a party for that. Nobody transferred a piece of land into my name. But those years of doing it quietly without recognition made me someone who could stand in a parking lot after the worst dinner of her adult life and still know exactly who she was. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. Cole got the land and lost it in under a year. Not because he's a bad person. I don't think he is, but because receiving something large doesn't build the muscles you need to hold on to it. You have to earn the capacity for what you're given, or it slips through. That's not punishment. That's just how it works. My uncle saw me clearly when almost no one else did. He didn't rescue me or fight my battles. He just witnessed what was real. I've learned to hold on to people like that and let them matter more than the ones who've known me longest, but seen me least. Proximity isn't the same as understanding. Some people can share your last name and still be strangers to who you actually are. The bracelet sitting in that thrift store donation box is the most honest ending I could have given that chapter. I didn't yell, I didn't demand an apology. I just quietly returned what had been given, the same way they had, for years, quietly returned my efforts with indifference. There is something clarifying about matching someone's energy so precisely that they finally feel it. I am still learning what it means to stop trying to earn love from people who've already decided what you're worth to them. It's slow work. But I think the first step is just recognizing that their assessment was never the final word. It was only ever their limitation.